So everyone's telling us that Brexit is a bad idea. The mainstream media, the official fake news propaganda, Tony Blair, they're all telling us that Brexit's a bad idea. Soros has told us Brexit's a bad idea. What else could tell you it's a good idea? I mean, you know, what else do you need to convince you that it's a good idea, that you're on the right side if you support Brexit and you're against the mainstream media and the virtue signalling and so on? If you're against the IMF and all the bankers, all the central banks which caused the financial crisis and profiteered from it, like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, you know, all those primary zombie banks, the ones that are responsible for the financial crisis in the first place, they don't want Brexit. The IMF, Christine Lagarde, convicted of fraud in 2016, but they decided that she wouldn't be punished, she wouldn't be jailed. Someone else was convicted of giving businessmen money, basically, and, you know, from public funds. It's, the IMF are basically a central bank of central banks in Europe. You know, they're just there's the Troika, which is 3 banks, the ECB, the European Central Bank, the World Bank, and the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, headed by Christine Lagarde, who was convicted of fraud in 2016, but they said that it would trigger a leadership election and they couldn't risk that, so she kept her job. Can you believe that? What other job would you have where you were convicted of fraud or crime or something, and they had to keep you, and you just kept your job? We don't want to trigger a new leadership election, that would cause too many problems, so we've got to let you keep your job. You could just kill someone, but we're not going to trigger a new leadership election anyway. You could do whatever you want, Christine Lagarde. You've already been convicted of fraud, and you just kept your job. That is the fraud of the IMF. That is the fraud of the two-tier justice system. These people aren't going down because they are global elites. And that is what Theresa May is. That is what all the Chequers deal was when Merkel met with Theresa May one day before Chequers, and then May went to convey that information and relay the orders, the marching orders from Merkel, from Germany, from Europe, to her cabinet. And many of them objected at the time. You know, Andrea Leadsom actually voiced her opposition, and Theresa May shouted her down. And then after that, Andrea Leadsom seemed to be in support of the Chequers deal because she'd been bullied to do so. That's what Theresa May does. Chequers is not what anyone voted for. It's, you know, Jacob Rees-Mogg is always talking about the Lancaster House Agreement and how that was more in line with what people voted for. Well, now that's not going to happen. Now Chequers is being forced, even though the EU said no. There's going to be even more capitulation as we get closer to them and try and do some sort of deal to avoid no deal and going on the World Trade Organization. And contrary to what everyone else thinks, I don't think World Trade Organization or World Trade rules are necessarily a good thing, because it's a globalist body. It's a Rockefeller Institute. It's associated with the UN, just like NATO. You know, a lot of Brexiteers don't like NATO because they see the EU army as the alternative. Well, NATO is the global army. You can't support globalists. If you support Brexit, if you support patriotism, if you support nationalism, if you support sovereignty and having your own country and having your own borders and safe citizens and you know, freedom, then you can't support any globalist institution. And that includes the royal family, that includes the IMF, that includes the media, that includes anything. The government. They are globalists right now. They are traitors. They are selling out Britain because they're working for globalists. They're doing everything that Merkel said. Merkel shouldn't even be in power right now. She should have been removed. She's not in power legitimately. She's in power because the media are keeping her in power. And everyone that's supposed to be kept in power. Have you noticed how recently Chuck Schumer's been involved in a sex abuse scandal? And the mainstream media, all the papers, all the news, all the press comes out and says it's a fake scandal. Oh, he's been accused, you know, accused of a fake scandal, of, you know, sexual assault, fake sexual assault. Imagine if they said that when Trump was accused. You know, they all turned out to be fake, but the media didn't say it was fake, did they? They were determined to say that was real. So it's very noticeable, their propaganda. Sometimes they get behind a candidate and want them, you know, to be supported no matter what. And no matter what the facts come out, they'll just say they're, you know, supposed things, or, you know, someone suggested it or claimed it. That's the best one, to discredit and disassociate facts and so on. Say that they claimed it. Say it's just an opinion rather than a fact. I love it when people do that, when you can actually cite facts, you can qualify everything you say about why globalists, why the royal family, for example, are antithetical to Brexit, because they're globalists and they've been working with Tony Blair to, you know, buy the depleted uranium that was used to bomb Fallujah in 2003, etc. All the different wars and genocides around the world which have caused ISIS, and in support with the Saudi royal family, you know, they've imported terrorists from around the world into this country. They've imported that poisonous ideology, and they've started incrementally changing the laws, having already changed the police through common purpose. And then the other person says, well, that's your opinion. Well, it's not my opinion. But it's a good tactic to try and belittle facts. A tried and tested tactic. Just like, well, I don't trust your source. And why don't they trust the source? Because the mainstream media and Snopes said so. Snopes said that it was a fake news outlet, that it was pushing fake news, and the mainstream media, like CNN, is all completely 100% Veritas. Apart from Project Veritas, which isn't apparently, according to Snopes. Because Snopes is the bastion of all truth, isn't it? We're supposed to actually treat it with the utmost respect, and everyone that looks on Google or anything, look, I can prove something's a fact because Snopes said so. That's how the world has become now. People actually think that's the case, even though Snopes is just basically there to reinforce the echo chamber of propaganda. It's not there to tell you the truth. It doesn't tell you the truth. Nothing Snopes says is true. But it has to have a stupid friendly name, doesn't it? Like a dog. Ooh, Snopes. So stupid, that name. What the hell? What's Mashable? Gizmodo? Mojo? What's Mojo? Ooh. They've all got stupid retarded names. BuzzFeed. Daily Beast. Actually, that's how you know when there's propaganda, because they've got stupid childish names to appeal to the infantilized populations. So, you know, if you know the facts, if you know what's what, and you know that actual news comes from unfiltered sources like Project Veritas, like WikiLeaks, then you're not going to pay attention to the propaganda that's called Snopes.